welcome to My Life as a Critic. I am professional film critic Sean Patrick, and yes, I do say the words professional film critic out of both insecurity and braggadocio. Insecurity, because I keep having to remind myself that indeed I am considered a professional film critic, and bragging because who actually calls themselves that? Anyway, I do, I guess. But on this show, I take a look back at my career and the things I've written about movies in the past, and then I rewatch the movie and see if my insights hold up and whether or not my feelings have evolved on any particular movie, and whether or not I can bring any new insight to the film once I've watched it a second time. On this episode, we're talking about the movie Too Fast, Too Furious. Vin Diesel, of course, is now sharing pictures from the set of Furious 8, and who would have thought that would happen? But indeed, it's certainly not in 2003. No one thought it was going to happen because Vin Diesel had left the series after one movie. He was seemingly finished. From Too Fast, Too Furious, we're going to move to Tokyo Drift, and it seemed like the series was completely dead. And then Diesel decided to make a comeback, and, well, now here we are. Furious 8 was set for a blockbuster release in 2017. Paul Walker, of course, having passed recently, will not obviously be part of that, but Paul Walker is a strange... I've had a very unusual relationship with Paul Walker as a critic, because I've never liked the guy as an actor. And that is to say, I don't have anything against him personally. And people often ascribe some kind of personal feeling to somebody when a critic doesn't like a particular actor. Oftentimes, I believe, I can recall more than a couple times having been accused of, well, you just don't like him because he's really handsome. That's really got nothing to do with it. I mean, it had to do with the fact that while he was alive, Paul Walker made a series of really bad films in which he was particularly bad in them. Just because somebody dies, it doesn't make them a great actor. As harsh as that may sound, it's true. From my standpoint, he just wasn't particularly good. That said, in the Fast and Furious films, he was what he was. He was handsome, and he filled the screen as he was supposed to, and even had some fun. And especially in the last Fast and Furious film that he made, he was really entertaining. He was actually very funny, very confident, and who knows, maybe he was actually getting better as an actor. We'll never know. But the bottom line is that my review will probably be quite mean, I guess, if you want to say, or at least critical, highly critical of Paul Walker. I always was. while he was alive, and pretty much in everything he was in. So just bear that in mind. If you're a Paul Walker fan, you're probably not going to enjoy this. Let's get to my review of Too Fast, Too Furious from 2003, written for Bickit.com. That's BIKKIT.com. Who said you need a plot to make a movie? Certainly not the producers of the original Fast and Furious. Their formula? Grab a couple of boy toy Hollywood hunks, a couple of hot babes wearing next to nothing, and a whole lot of even hotter looking cars, and boom, you've got a movie. There was some mess about stealing and cops and undercover whatever. The only thing anyone remembers from the film are the cars. So when Vin Diesel dropped out of the sequel, along with director Rob Cohen, the producers of Too Fast, Too Furious didn't sweat for a second. All they needed were some even hotter cars, and no one would notice the missing cast members. That they also went out and got superstar in the making Tyrese, and pro-director John Singleton is like touching up the paint on an already hot car. Paul Walker returns as well as, who the hell cares? What car is he driving is the question, and in the film's opening race scene, it's this light green sporty number. While the race doesn't quite match the opening race of the first film, there's a very cool stunt involving a raised drawbridge. The plot recast Walker in the same mumbling Keanu Reeves impression as the first film. This time, however, he's an ex-cop, fired for having allowed Vin Diesel's character to get away in the original film. Now he's been picked up by the Miami-Dade police after a street race. His ex-boss from Los Angeles asks him to lead an undercover operation, blah, blah, blah. All this means is that he gets an even cooler car, as does his partner, a friend from childhood, played by Tyrese. Oh, but those cars have tracking devices, so our crafty heroes obtain 2 more cars in another killer street racing scene involving 2 of the baddest muscle cars ever seen on screen. As my colleague Roy dubbed it, it's car porn. And I'm not even a car guy. I can barely change a tire, let alone tell you about an engine. Thankfully, Too Fast, Too Furious could care less about the car's makeup. Much like the audience, they just want the cars to look cool and go fast. To rip into Too Fast, Too Furious for not having a plot would be like accusing the sky of being blue. If you go for a coherent story or artful shooting techniques, then your pretensions completely overcome you, and you should spend the rest of your life watching European art films in black and white. Too Fast, Too Furious is about cars, adrenaline, and the occasional hot chick wearing next to nothing. It's like Hot Rod magazine come to life. So why did John Singleton direct material so obviously beneath him? Well, your guess is as good as any, but if I had to guess, I'd say he needs a $100 million blockbuster to finance another project he'd like to make. Unfortunately for Singleton, he's not likely to get much of the credit for the success of Too Fast, Too Furious. A toddler with a handycam could point at these awesome cars and get the same response. That's not to say he did a bad job. Indeed, he invested far more directorial prowess into the film than it deserved, or was anywhere necessary. Tyrese, for his part, is a star in the making as he showed in Singleton's far superior film, Baby Boy. He has the intensity and drive of a Lawrence Fishburne or a Ving Rhames, but in the body of an underwear model. Given the right material, superstardom is not out of the question, though don't book a place at the Academy just yet. As for Walker, he is the acting equivalent of a placeholder. Tyrese blows Walker off the screen at every turn. Too Fast, Too Furious is abysmal from the standpoint of true film criticism, but in its truest form as mindless car porn, it's ingenious. The muscle cars and sporty racers with their nitrous oxide and amazing stunt driving are as exciting as any well-made action movie. That Singleton makes the whole thing look professional is an unnecessary plus, and it shows what a great director he is. And that is my 2003 review of Too Fast and Too Furious, and I can pretty well stand behind pretty much everything I said in that review. It definitely does seem to encompass much of the Fast and Furious franchise, although they've turned from car porn into more of the heist films in the past three, and actually become quite entertaining as just spectacles. Tyrese obviously hasn't developed into the kind of superstar that I thought he could be based off of this performance and his performance in Baby Boy, which is a film that is completely forgotten today. But he's still making plenty of money making these Fast and Furious movies, so I guess good for him. I will pause now and watch Too Fast, Too Furious, and give you another take on Too Fast, Too Furious when we come back here on My Life as a Critic. I'm Sean Patrick. What is there to say about this movie, Too Fast, Too Furious? It's really, really dopey, but also really breezy and easy to watch. The plot is very simple. The acting is extraordinarily simple. Tyrese isn't as great as I remember. He's okay. He's passable. I don't know what it was that I saw in him back in 2003 that I was so impressed with, but probably the time doesn't help because, he hasn't done anything since this other than, like I said, a couple more Fast and Furious movies that he's done since this film, but he's really not kind of broken out again as an actor, like the way he did in Baby Boy, and maybe that's what's affecting my opinion of him now. My opinion of Paul Walker has never changed. He's a less expressive Keanu Reeves. He's a pretty face who... I don't know what it is that Hollywood saw in him. I still don't know what Hollywood ever saw in him. I guess he's kind of blandly handsome, and he's blonde. I guess that's enough to make him a movie star. Singleton's direction, is, like I said, it makes this movie easy to swallow. It's got a quick pace, great looking cars, pretty fantastic cinematography. The cars are the stars, of course. They just look great. The big muscle cars and the tiny little speeding racing cars are fantastic. But I'm not as enamored of this movie as I was, I guess, back in 2003, which was still in the glow of the 2001 original with Vin Diesel and Paul Walker, which was a better movie just because Vin Diesel is kind of more convincing than anybody else in the entire franchise. You can say what you will about Vin Diesel. He does sell himself very well as a whatever role he's in. He can bring it when he wants to. I'm not saying Vin Diesel's a great actor, but he's a compelling actor, and he's compelling in that kind of grunty, sort of young Stallone kind of way. And he was young back in 2000, obviously. But I mean, so Vin Diesel is far more appealing to me than anything in this film, which is kind of surprising because I kind of made fun of the first film a little bit. Even though I did enjoy it, I thought I enjoyed Too Fast, Too Furious as much, and I don't now. The time has not been kind to this movie, although the franchise has evolved in a very different direction now. It's a heist film now, it's a heist series now, as opposed to a race car movie that it was, and that was a really smart direction. It's all become about big, massive stunts, sometimes, I guess, involving cars, but for the most part, just a big stunt movie, and in that way, the modern Fast and Furious franchise still is appealing to me. Too Fast, Too Furious, though, really is a bad movie in so many ways. There's a lot of really laughable elements of this film, especially Paul Walker's performance, where he's just so boring. And he can't help but laugh anytime he calls somebody bro. Yeah, bro. Thanks, bro. Whatever, bro. It's just so comical. And Tyrese is actually, I mean, in the rest of the series, he's far funnier than he is in this movie. They try and serious him up a little bit in this one, and he's not nearly as fun as he is as they go along, where he gets he's developed into kind of the comic sidekick, the comic relief of the heist version of the Furious movies, and he seems better suited to that than this. In my review, I was calling him a future superstar, and again, I have to wonder what it is that I was seeing, because watching it again, I honestly don't know what it was that I saw in him at the time. I guess it was the glow of Baby Boy, because he is very good in Baby Boy. I still remember Baby Boy, and John Singleton brought a lot out of him in that movie. And it was a very dramatic and moving role, and he seemed to really live that performance. But he's just not a very good actor, Tyrese. But he's not supposed to be. He's a singer turned actor, and he still was going through a lot of growing pains at the time, and I don't know if I was reacting more to him in Baby Boy and just kind of carrying that over to Too Fast, Too Furious, or what. But there's got to be some explanation for why I thought he was so incredible then, and I certainly don't see it now after watching Too Fast, Too Furious again for the first time in 13 years. Too Fast, Too Furious is bad. It's really bad, but at the same time, it has a number of really good elements. Like I said, John Singleton's direction, the pace is strong. It doesn't pause for too long. It never allows these characters to spend too much time talking, which is always a good thing in these movies. You don't want these guys trying to monologue in any way. You want to get them in cars and moving as quickly as possible, and Singleton's good at doing that. There's some really bad CGI in this, some very 2003 CGI in this movie when they start driving really, really fast. It really cuts to some very, very computer-generated vehicles. And it's, I mean, sometimes humorously bad CGI, but, it was 2003, I mean, to be fair. But, Too Fast, Too Furious, I was really nice to this movie back in 2003, and man, I think I don't know if I've matured further away from the idea of just being able to enjoy something on a visceral level or what. Although, like I said, I enjoy the modern Fast and Furious movies. The heist version of this franchise is just as empty and just as ridiculous as Too Fast, Too Furious. Is just far more enjoyable, I guess, because of Vin Diesel. Just because of the persona of Vin Diesel is really what makes the current version of this film, the heist version, so much more entertaining than even the original or especially this sequel, Too Fast, Too Furious. And the utter ridiculousness that they keep amping up in this franchise, adding The Rock and Jason Statham, and the just ludicrous ways in which these characters are placed in situations that are absolutely impossible to survive. I mean, it's cartoon physics at this point with these movies, and I kind of enjoy the utter ludicrousness of the cartoon physics that they've applied to these movies. And granted, that's been there from pretty much the first movie, although the first movie tries to have an element of seriousness or kind of sort of realism. This film has a sort of self-seriousness to it that's easy to mock, and once they abandoned that in the rest of the film after Tokyo Drift and moving forward as a heist franchise, once they've abandoned any sort of semblance of reality, I think that's when this series really took off and became something that I can enjoy, even beyond just a visceral level of enjoying fast cars and beautiful women. But Too Fast, Too Furious may be, other than Tokyo Drift, which really doesn't even count, really, if you think about it, is probably the worst of the franchise. It's really the dopiest one of the franchise, and it's the one that relies way too much on Paul Walker. Really relies way too much on Paul Walker, and he really can't carry it on his own. And Tyrese isn't strong enough to help him carry it. Without Vin Diesel, this one really does fall apart, and it kind of gives me a whole new appreciation for just what Vin Diesel brings to this franchise. It really is mostly, if not entirely, about him. Even if it is kind of an ironic appreciation or a kind of a mocking appreciation of what Vin Diesel brings to this series, he is compelling, even in a kind of kitschy, campy sort of way. And I do appreciate that. And I appreciate mostly the directors who have brought the most recent Fast and Furious movies to the screen, who understand that they are making cartoons. That's what they're doing. They've got just Bugs Bunny characters doing ridiculously over-the-top stunts. And from that perspective, I still find myself enjoying the Furious movies and actually looking forward to Furious 8 next year. I'm Sean Patrick, and this is My Life as a Critic, and thank you for listening to Too Fast, Too Furious.